Hey, welcome back, Boxers. Today we're going to go through the various form types that exist. There are a number of them that exist, but today I'm going to go through the most relevant ones. And from there, you can extend those with JavaScript and CSS. And we'll go over a little bit of that today. But for now, we're just going to insert a different form type into each one of these, and I'll briefly explain what they are. So this one is input type, and we'll change that out for button. And then we'll add a value here, and the value will just say submit. And with that, you'll be able to just create simple buttons. Okay, and I will extend the style on this a bit. Change that to 5 pixels. Give it some padding on the outside. All right, and when I'm done, I will include the link to this pen in the description so that you can take a look at that. All right, this one is a popular one. This is checkbox, and checkbox, as you can imagine, creates a checkbox. When you check it, a check mark is placed inside the box. Now, checkboxes you can have multiples. Um, and the way checkboxes are designed, you're able to select as many of them as you want. If there is a situation where you are only allowing your user to select one of them, in that case, you would do an input of a radio, which is a radio button. Now, with radio buttons, you have to group them. So if I put 3 radio buttons here, this is going to allow me to select all 3. But in that case, you would just use check marks. So when you're using a radio button, you have to identify them as part of a group. And you do that by, if you're passing this information to a database, then you would use an ID and you would put some type of an ID in here. Now, if you are, and each one would be unique so that when you receive that information, you know what the user selected. For example, if I put in ID male, ID female, oops, and ID other, then this is the value that would get passed to the database, and then I would know on that particular form whether the user selected male, female, or other. Now, even so, I can still select all 3. So how we deal with that is we add a name. So in this name, maybe we'll call it gender, and I'll copy and paste this into each one. And that makes this entire group unique so that if I select one, it will unselect it if I select another one. Okay, and just for clarity, if you wanted to select, let's say, ID North, ID South, and then ID Other. Now, here you can still select all 3, okay? But now we'll group them. So we'll do name, location. I'll copy and paste this into here. So even though these are all now part of the same group, checkboxes are designed to select multiples. So that's a good idea to keep them organized, especially if you're using any type of a form validation where you need to carry that form into a database or send that form off to a particular email. You may need to use all of these different attributes, whether it's ID or name. Now, the next one we'll move on to here is color and input color. And what that's going to do is, and let's change the style on that, input type color. change that to inherit. And what this does is it's a color picker. This came out with HTML5. So you select the color. Okay, you can select the color over here or over here. Once you hit OK, then it passes that color over here. And I'm going to check some of these because down the line here, there's a reset one that I want to show you how that works. Okay, next one is date. And for this one, just substitute for the word date, and it's going to create a date picker. Okay, and it will pass the current date into that field. Okay, next one is email. Input type is email. And with this one, I'm going to add a submit button so that I can show you how this works. Okay, now let's save it. And if I enter in some random email, okay, that doesn't look like a valid email address. It's missing the top level domain. If I hit submit email, oops, let's refresh that. And why isn't that working? Let's just try some letters. Okay. And there's the validation script. And this is standard with HTML5. Any browser that supports these types of validation errors. Please include an @ in the email address. FFF is missing an @ symbol. So that helps you to validate your email. And then on top of that, if you enter in the word required, okay, that's going to make this field now required. And if you don't submit anything, it says, please fill out this field. Okay, next one, this is another popular one, and that's input password. And when you input a password, what you would expect is a series of asterisks. And that's exactly what happens here. Okay, and obviously you can make any of these fields required. If they're required in order to submit the form, then you can make them required simply by adding the attribute required. Okay, now this is something my browser's doing because it thinks it's a real password field. All right, next one is file, and with file, input file, and this is going to generate a field to upload a file. Okay, where you can select a file from your local disk and add it to the form. Okay, we'll keep an image in there. All right, next one is month. And what it does is it allows you to select the current date, but it will only display the current month. So November 2019. Input text is probably the most popular one. This is one where you can enter a name, you can enter a number. It takes just about anything you type in from your input device. Okay, telephone, input tel, and what that does is it helps to validate a phone number. Okay, URL, input URL. It's going to look like a regular text box, but there is validation going on behind the scenes. And for that, to test that, we'll go ahead and add in a button. Okay, and I'll go ahead and add in google.com. Okay. Oh, it's forcing me to fill out the email. Let me take off required there. Let's put back in this. please enter a URL. Now, let's try and put in this. Please enter a URL. It's still not a valid URL unless it has the HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, that took it as valid. Now, same thing with even if you add HTTPS. Not adding well, it may accept that because there are a lot of new top-level domains, and that's probably why I typed this one in earlier and it went through, because it doesn't recognize that .google is not a TLD. TLDs are the newer ones, .photography, .event, .design. There's a slew of them out there. You go to any one of the major web hosts and you can see what those are. All right, and the last one we'll go over is input reset. And what that does is anything that is within this form tag, wherever that reset button is, as long as that reset button is within the form tag, it's going to take everything and it's going to reset it back to the way that it was. So I don't recommend that you use it unless you really know what you're doing. And we'll smash some keys in there, throw an image in there. Okay, you could get all the way to the end of your form and accidentally hit the reset button, and that's what it's going to do. It's going to clear everything off of your form and set it back to its original state. Now, there is a lot of additional styling that you can do within your form and your inputs. In the pen, you'll find that I've styled based on certain types. Whether if I want the button next to the input for all of these, so I've given them all a display of inline. You can style checkboxes, for example. Let's take off 2 of these checkboxes just to show you an example here. And whoops, we'll go ahead and add in a label for location. Call that north, for example. So what you can do is add in an input style and just type equals quotes checkbox, and I'll do checked plus label, meaning that if the checkbox is checked, it's going to style everything, including the label. So if I add a style after this, let's say color green, font weight bold. Okay, so now when I check this, and bear with me. There we go. Had the label in the wrong place. You can put the label before it, and it will effectively light it up before it. So if you wanted to, highlight this as some kind of a form validation for the user, let them know exactly which one they selected, give them more of a visual reference, that certainly is possible. So I hope this video helped, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Please like and subscribe for more videos.